Oops. Hello, my noble lords and ladies. Anchor Pete here, along with my lady Sherry T. And we are here to talk about The Green Knight. Hopefully, if my cheesy intro didn't turn you off, you're here and you're ready to talk about this movie that was written, edited, produced, and directed by David Lowery. Sherry, how do you feel after watching a movie written, edited, produced, and directed by David Lowery?
This is the first movie I've seen by him. So Pete and I have talked about how we haven't seen any of his movies because they were definitely kind of independent, under the radar type films. But we saw the preview for this and we wanted to see it. And I didn't love this, but it was interesting.
Okay.
What do you think?
I really liked parts of it. I liked the overall idea of the movie, the overall message, the moral of the story, right? I really love Dev Patel, but I also do feel like there were times where I felt like a little bored or kind of like, okay, well, what is the significance of this scene, right? When we left our theater, we were walking out and there was a group of guys, and one of them was talking about how this has like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, but he thought it was the worst movie of 2021. And I don't feel that way. I've seen a lot more garbage.
Yeah, the same guy said I want my 2 hours of my life back. I heard him.
Yeah, but I do think that this is the kind of movie where if you want things explained, if you need like a straightforward story, this is not the kind of movie for you.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Sherry and I, we try not to talk about the movie usually when we're driving home because like we want to save it for you guys. But, we did kind of mention that it gave us a little bit of a vibe of like David Lynch, where, when we were watching it, we were kind of like, okay, what's the significance of this scene? Why is this happening? But with just a small bit of research, boy, did I start to appreciate this movie a lot more.
Yeah. If you know the poem that it's based on, it's a long poem.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with it, this movie will make a lot more sense. If you're not, you probably should look up kind of a synopsis of the poem or read it. But I can vouch for the fact that reading it is very hard because it was written in like the 14th or 15th century.
14th, yeah.
So it's even harder to read than Shakespeare. So good luck with that. I would, like I said, maybe do the Cliff Notes version. But if you do that, it'll help you understand what happens in this movie.
Yes.
Although the movie doesn't need explaining for everything, just for certain parts.
Yes.
I also like how we wore green.
Yes.
Did you do that on purpose?
I did actually, yes.
Because we're cheesy and super literal.
Yes. But what I was going to say, Sherry, is that poem, I looked up a synopsis of, because I did the Cliff Notes, right? And I was actually surprised at how faithful this movie was to that poem.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this really just matches up. I thought that maybe David Lowery sort of took a little bit of poetic license and, threw in a bunch of details that weren't there. But boy, they were there, man.
He did throw in details. I mean, like, some of that stuff isn't in the poem.
Of course. So spoiler central, we're just going to be spoiling the movie The Green Knight. We're also going to be spoiling the Green Knight poem from the 14th century. So, okay.
So if you haven't read that, you're out of luck.
Yes.
Okay, so you got our initial reactions, but now we're going to go into spoilers. So if you don't want to hear this stuff, come back later after you've watched the movie.
Yes. So right before I say my little spoiler right off the bat, I want to also say, if you haven't liked this video, we'd love a like, and we'd also love for you to join us with our discussion. So make sure you subscribe too. Anyway, jizz on a belt, on a sash. That's my big, I'm going to remember this movie from that. You don't usually see semen in movies. Like maybe in the Squid and the Whale, right? The kid kind of puts it on the books in the library.
Yeah, it's a very specific example.
Yes, but I think that scene probably stands out the most in this movie. I feel like that's like the message of the movie, like right on its head, man, right there.
I wonder if that changes the rating of a movie just showing that.
I'm sure. There were a few things in this, though, that could get you an R rating. But, of course, one of the main things that crosses the line is the beheading game. Did you know that the beheading game is actually a thing that's in literature?
No, not until I did also my own research, yeah.
Yeah, so the Green Knight story, the poem, is the most famous example of the beheading game. But it's basically a game where, like, knights or warriors go at each other and behead each other, essentially, right? But it's usually like these like kind of supernatural stories
where
someone could survive it, right? So
yeah, I was gonna say it wouldn't be much of a game if someone got beheaded. The game's over.
the
right?
guy's like, all right, well, I guess I won. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. This is more interesting because, and since we're talking spoilers,
Mm-hmm.
Gawain does behead the Green Knight, but the Green Knight walks over and takes his head and goes home and says, "I'll see you in a year."
Yeah. So, like, it follows the poem literally, and that does happen in the poem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that we needed to clarify was that at this Christmas celebration that Sherry is mentioning, it's in King Arthur's court, right? Now, you wouldn't necessarily know that from watching this movie because they never say this is King Arthur, this is Merlin, right?
Yeah, but it's implied.
Right. But here's the thing. Once you go down that King Arthur rabbit hole, it gets way more interesting, right? Because the main idea with Dev Patel, with Sir Gawain, right, is that he is kind of reluctant to become a knight. He's a slacker. He's getting drunk all the time. He's not being very noble, right? And his mother...
He doesn't have a lot of purpose in life. He's like, he's got like a prostitute girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the drunk thing's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's irritating.
And so his mother performs some kind of ritual at the very beginning, which essentially sets up the Green Knight, kind of like brings the Green Knight to life. Now, I was wondering about the mother for the longest time because I'm like, oh, this is an interesting little take. It's like the mom is basically trying to like promote her slacker son. But the mom, do you know who the mom is, Sherry, just by deduction?
Morgan Le Fay?
Morgan Le Fay.
I'm not sure if that's right.
That's the implication, is that like he's King Arthur's nephew.
Yes.
And so his father died, but his mother, well, actually his father would be King Arthur, right? Based on some of the versions of King Arthur.
Yeah, there's different versions of King Arthur. And some versions, King Arthur has a couple of sisters, like three sisters.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that's what they were saying in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They do say in this movie that Gawain is his nephew and that his mom is his sister. But I don't know that she's supposed to be Morgan Le Fay. She is doing like some sort of magic, right?
Yeah.
She does do magic and conjure up the Green Knight, or call him. I'm not sure if she conjured him or called him. But I have another take on who Morgan Le Fay is.
Okay, well, can I just do my 2 cents of Morgan Le Fay and then you do yours?
Sure.
So I was thrown off. I didn't think it was King Arthur because he says, you were born of my sister, right? And, she's played by an actress who, I don't know her ethnicity, but she's not the same complexion and stuff as King Arthur.
I think she's Mexican.
Okay, that's Sarita Chowdhury or whatever. She's the mother. And then, of course, Dev Patel is like Indian, I think, right? Slumdog Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they were doing sort of like a Bridgerton kind of thing where, it doesn't really matter
they're colorblind, yeah.
Right. But in Arthurian legend, when Morgan Le Fay is his sister, then they have 2 different sets of parents too, right? Because like his dad is Uther, and then he's with some other woman, right?
Her dad's Uther too.
Yeah, but she's like a half sister.
I know, different mom.
So anyway, that kind of all worked out in my mind, But I had to put the 2 and 2 together. What did you think about Morgan Le Fay? Who did you think was Morgan Le Fay?
The old lady who was with the wealthy couple who was blind.
Okay.
Or who had the thing over her eyes.
Why did you think that?
Because that's what happens in the poem.
Really? I read something contradictory in the poem. It says that Morgan Le Fay is the woman in the noble house?
Not necessarily. It says that she set up the whole situation
with
the Green Knight.
Right. Which I thought the mom did in this, right? Because here's the deal. When I looked into is
the old lady in the house the mom? Because they both wear blindfolds at different points. I'm sorry, this movie is confusing. Okay, if we haven't been clear about that, it's confusing, and there are several scenes that are not clear, nor can I say with confidence that I understand them. There's a talking fox that I don't understand what the purpose of that fox is. Do you?
The fox at one point almost seemed like it was like King Arthur's voice coming out of the fox, or it was the mother's voice. And in both regards, they were saying like, "Come home," or like, "Come with me." So I think the fox was trying to protect him. The whole movie to me was like the mother was trying to promote her son, but also protect him from dying. That was my main takeaway.
I agree, but I don't think that she would. The fox trying to keep him from going to fulfill his destiny is a bad thing. Like, to me, this is almost more like an Odyssey type thing where This is a quest movie, okay? He does this thing with the Green Knight where he beheads him, and then he has to, in a year, go back to the Green Knight's green chapel. It's a lot of greenery, and the Green Knight gets to do the same thing to him if he wants. He gets to give him some sort of blow, okay? So the whole movie is his quest to get to the Green Chapel and the Green Knight, which is like a week-long journey, on horseback. However, throughout the quest, he loses everything he had that he starts out with. He loses his armor. He loses his horse. He loses his weapons. He loses the protective sash his mother gave him. All these important things. And then through different scenarios, and the movie has chapters that kind of help you know something's about to happen or something new is going to happen. Which I really liked. I liked the chapters. Did you like that?
Agreed, yes.
It took some of the suspense away because it warns you sort of ahead of time that this is going to happen or something with this is going to happen.
Yes.
But I still liked it. Anyway, so through all those different scenarios on his way to his final destination, right? He loses those things, but he also gets them back through acts of honor, bravery, kindness, right?
Yeah.
And I think these are all things that are important in becoming a knight, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that it's still, we're lined up the same way. We kind of agree, right?
I just don't think the fox, anything trying to keep him from fulfilling his destiny is more like, it's like, that's why I brought up the Odyssey, it's getting in his way. It's like a temptation to not fulfill his destiny. And we see what happens at the end of this movie when he doesn't go through with what he's supposed to do. So there's that kind of dream sequence where it shows him running away from the Green Knight. And do you understand that was all a dream?
Yes.
Okay. He runs away from the Green Knight. He goes home. He marries the wrong person. He does some terrible things. His country, he becomes king and his country becomes war torn and ravaged.
Yes.
But luckily he doesn't in reality run away from the Green Knight, and we can assume he goes on to fulfill his destiny and become a knight, and he's considered one of the greatest knights in Arthurian legend.
Right. Well, the way that I took it was that the mother was always trying to get him to rise up in power, but she didn't want him to necessarily be at risk and die. So she goes through this whole ritual to make that sash, which he gets, but then he loses that sash when he is taken by these muggers, right? That are in the woods, these thieves.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you said, he loses all of his objects. And also, like you said, every time he does something that's actually truly noble, he gets them back.
He gets one item at a time back per deed.
Right. He loses the Green Knight's axe. There's one point where this spirit, Winifred, asks him to retrieve her skull.
Her head.
Right, and he does. But
there's a lot of beheading in this movie.
Of course. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that the mom was trying to keep him. I think the mom was trying to keep him from dying, to keep him safe. But yet she did want him to rise in power, to be the next king, to become a knight, right? Because she gives him the sash, and I think that she was the voice of the fox at the end, keeping him from the Green Knight. Because that, the Green Knight represents death, or the inevitable death, right? And so...
Yeah, because Alicia Vikander's character gives that whole speech on the color green and what it means,
right?
Which is death,
yeah,
and the inevitability of ending up in the ground and earth and everything,
right? And just to kind of go along with what you were talking about a couple minutes ago, the movie has a few scenarios where we see kind of Dev Patel or Sir Gawain's true potential, or not true potential, his real character kind of shining through, right? He goes off on his noble quest, and there are these little kids that are cheering him from behind, but he can't be bothered with them. He leaves them in the dust, right? This guy who seems like a scavenger kind of out by himself gives him some information on where he can go to find the Green Knight, and he doesn't give him any kind of thing besides his thanks, right? He's kind of petty. Even when he goes to find the spirit's head, before he does it, he says to her, well, what do I get in return if I do this? That's just not like a knight at all.
Yeah, and she checks him on that.
Right. And also
she's like, why are you asking me this?
Right, and the scavenger checks him too. He's like, you're gonna thank me besides giving me thanks, right?
Right.
So that, I feel like that's the essence of the story, is that he's not truly noble. I saw in one of the reviews that someone wrote that it's like with these kind of quests, you can go as far away from home or go as far in the world as possible, but you're always going to be the same person. Or, you can't run away from who you are. And I feel like he is the same person throughout the whole movie with a few noble acts. And then at the very end, that's when he does show his bravery, But the whole thing is that he's being helped by his mom throughout the whole movie. I think that the mom is the fox, essentially, or like possessing the fox or something like that.
Okay, I didn't get that.
The fox saves him. And there's one scene in the movie that I feel like I can't explain, but everything else kind of makes sense to me.
Okay.
Do you know what that scene is? There's these giants, these naked, bald giants, just walking through this valley, right? And I'm like, well, what's up with the naked, bald giants? I don't get what they're about. And the thing is, the fox does like kind of bark at one of the giants when it goes to grab Gawain, and I think that's the fox was protecting him.
The fox started howling with them.
It protected him, and then it howled after they didn't grab him.
Okay, I just didn't. See, we have different interpretations. I didn't ever think that giant wanted to hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I honestly thought? There was so much of this in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Someone caressing Gawain's face.
Mm-hmm.
Or Gawain caressing someone's face. That happens like a lot
Mm-hmm.
with various characters. It looked like the giant was going to do that to him, to me.
Maybe.
Anyway, I don't understand that scene either.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the giants were. I don't remember having read about giants in Arthurian Legend. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I took a class in college on Arthurian Legend, but I just don't remember any giants. So I can't explain that either. To me, that's not the only thing I can explain. I can't explain the fox. I mean, you're saying it's the mom. I didn't see much evidence to support that personally. I'm not sure what was going on with the old lady with the blindfold in the house with who's the actor you like?
Joel Edgerton.
Joel Edgerton and Alicia Vikander. They're kind of important because that's where he's further tested, right?
Yeah.
Because she's tempting him.
Yes.
Sorry, I got a cough.
It's okay.
The wife is further testing him because she's tempting him. She wants him to come to her room. A knight would never go. He would respect a lady and the man of the house and would never do it. And Gawain doesn't do it, but he does kind of succumb.
Literally.
I feel like it was unfair though. She came to his room.
Yeah.
And she was all over him while he was in bed sleeping. I don't know. Yeah. And by the way, in the poem, this happens as well. Yeah. But it's a kiss. He kisses her.
Right.
And she gives him the sash, and he is punished slightly for that.
Yeah.
But the giant at the end, or the Green Knight, I'm calling him a giant. He's a Green Knight.
He's pretty big.
He is big.
Yeah.
At the end, he laughs it off in the poem. It says, "If that's the worst you've done, then you're better than most knights."
Yeah, exactly.
So, but when I was watching this movie without having had the poem as a refresher, I was kind of thinking, what is going on?
Right.
What is the problem here? She's throwing herself at him. What is he supposed to do? And
I agree.
He already resisted her.
Yeah, well, that made me appreciate the movie a lot more because there's one part where
I need you to talk for a second.
Okay, he's about to leave, right? Dev is going to leave after Alicia Vikander has seduced him, right? And so he's like, I gotta get out of here. The guy Joel Edgerton's gonna come get me, right? So he goes to leave.
Because that's the husband.
Right, and he runs into Joel Edgerton in the woods. And there's this big hunter. He's got a dead bear that he just hunted and killed, right? And Joel Edgerton's character, the Lord, had said, I will give you anything that I catch out here. Whatever I get outside that I hunt, you can have. But whatever you get inside my castle, you give to me. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That definitely sounds like something from some sort of Arthurian poem, right?
I thought it was kind of riddly, like a riddle, and it reminded me of The Hobbit or something.
Sure.
I was you got to unravel the riddle. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, Tolkien was definitely inspired by stuff like this, right? So anyway, in the movie, he says, okay, well, give me the thing that you got in my castle. And then Joel Edgerton's like, oh, I know what you got in my castle. And he leans over and he has Gawain kiss him. And he kisses Gawain. Now, I sat there thinking, okay, well, this is definitely not an Arthurian legend. They don't have men kissing men in these stories. That's definitely some sort of modern twist. But then doing research, I saw that did in fact happen in the poem. That it didn't just happen once either. It happened like the wife kissed him multiple times, and he ended up kissing the Lord multiple times.
Right, because that's what he got, that the Lord
Right.
from their home. Right, he got a kiss, he had to give a kiss back to the Lord.
Yes.
In the poem, Gawain willingly gives the kiss.
Right.
But without divulging who gave it to him.
Right.
Which I kind of almost like the way the poem sounds a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like in this, he's definitely not as good a guy.
Right, and that's cool.
He's less noble, and he's got more flaws, and maybe more human. Like who's the writer director, David Lowery?
Lowery.
Yeah, he kind of humanized Gawain more.
Yeah. Well, at the end, one thing that differs from the poem and from this movie, the poem and the movie are different, is that the Lord is the Green Knight too. It turns out like he was the Green Knight, and through like magic, he pretended to be the Green Knight.
Through Morgan Le Fay's magic.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's why I thought it was an old lady there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was a part in the very beginning when the mom does a ritual and she has a blindfold over her eyes, and then this woman that's in this castle with the Lord, Joel Edgerton, and then Alicia Vikander, she has a blindfold over her eyes as well. So
couldn't they both be sisters of Arthur and both be like doing some magic?
Yeah, of course. It definitely gives off that kind of vibe, right? There was consistency between like all the women that were kind of involved with the magic, and then all the knights kind of looked similar. This movie had fantastic costume design, but I think the thing that was the most impressive of this movie was the actual cinematography.
It was beautiful.
It was a beautiful movie.
Beautiful, yeah.
And there were some special effects, but in general, there's just so many shots just using nature and just Dev Patel in a forest somewhere.
Yeah, I do have a complaint about the lighting. It's a pretty dark film, and I wanted to be able to see better. And you can say it's realistic because they're in dark castles with stone walls and no windows and all this, fine. But for a movie purpose, I want to be able to see better.
I understand that.
For a longer amount of time. Okay, there are a few scenes that are like lit up because he's outside. Thank God. When those scenes would happen, I'd be like, thank God I can see people's faces. So much of it you can hardly see very well. But there are tons of beautiful shots, like you said. I think the shots with the giants, one of the standouts, really gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they filmed it. Did you find that out?
I don't know.
It's so pretty everywhere. In the costume design is really cool. I love their take on the crowns, which almost look like saints' halos or something.
Yes,
I loved it. Really good medieval costumes.
Yes.
If you like medieval stuff, this is definitely worth checking out if you're into Renaissance festivals and King Arthur, and if you liked Game of Thrones, even maybe which is medieval.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you could find something to enjoy here. Just don't expect a straightforward story.
Yeah, this is definitely like a cerebral story, which is about the quality of a character, right? Like, is he going to be noble? Is he not? And so there isn't like, a lot of plot. There isn't really any kind of fighting at all. There's nothing like that. If you are expecting like sort of knights fighting, there's nothing like that whatsoever. And that's fine.
It's an anti-superhero movie because like there's very like the action is slow, right?
There is no action.
Yeah, you better
You
need to bring your attention span because like there are long, slow shots.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was bad. Like you need to be patient. You have to be patient and wait and see what happens, kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
because things do happen.
Yeah, Sherry mentioned before this sequence that she said was a dream sequence. It's at the very end of the movie. Basically, Gawain makes it to the Green Chapel, and he's going to get decapitated by the Green Knight, but he flinches, and then he eventually runs away, right? And so there's this long sequence, this dream sequence that you mentioned. I mean, I think it was at least 10 minutes, right? Maybe more.
Yeah.
And there's no dialogue. It's just scene after scene of what the rest of Gawain's life would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
if he ran away from the Green Knight and didn't fulfill his destiny or his duty,
right? And I think that's a very ballsy choice to make, to have like essentially like a montage that's like 10 minutes or so without dialogue.
Yes. This movie took chances. It's not typical. They did kind of more with the artistic point of view.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, how many movies are just about honor?
Yeah.
Like having honor and what that means to have honor. That's what this movie is about.
Yeah. I mean, you said it took artistic chances. The movie was made by A24. That's the studio. And I mean, just listen to these movies that they made: Sherry, Zola, Minari, Saint Maud, Uncut Gems, The Lighthouse, Midsummer, and I'm sure there are a ton that we are not even thinking about.
I hope they keep making movies. That's some good stuff.
Yeah, they are kind of like the it studio right now for making these sort of different kind of like almost like art house films.
You say art house, I say original. This is original content. I mean,
yeah.
I guess Gowan and the Green Knight is not original since it's based on a really old poem. But
but the take on it.
Yes, the take on it. And like for a while, medieval movies I thought were going to make a comeback because of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I love medieval stuff, but it just kind of didn't. So I don't know if this movie's going to help with the comeback, but I like Arthurian stuff. I love it. I would like to see more. Excalibur is freaking awesome. I would love to see more types of things like Excalibur.
I think John Boorman, right? That's the director. It's from the 70s, that version of Excalibur?
It's 1981.
1981. Okay. That is fantastic. And the music in that is fantastic. I love that version of Excalibur so much.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I can't wait till our kids old enough to see, naked people having sex in the woods.
Yes. And in castles and with dragons and stuff too. So it's great. So anyway, I don't really have much else to say. Well, actually, I have a ton of things to say, right? But I just don't think that.
I want to bring up one thing, one standout scene that is one of his quests, kind of one of the things he has to do to prove his honor.
Okay.
As he goes into a house that seems abandoned, but it's occupied by a spirit,
right.
Which you don't know is a spirit at first, but eventually you find out. And what's her name? Saint Winifred. So she's a saint.
Yeah.
That whole scene was my favorite, personally. I really liked everything that happened with that. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was like she was kind of funny. And I like his quest to have to like dive into this water and find her head for her because she's basically a spirit who was a person who was beheaded. Yeah. And she can't rest until she has her head. She doesn't outright say this, but you can deduce it from what you know of ghost stories and what she's asking of him. And he goes and gets it for her, and that he resolves her issue. And in turn, she gives him back the axe from the Green Knight that he had lost to thieves. But I really liked that whole sequence. I thought that was really good. That was personally my favorite, along with like kind of those images of the giants walking through the mist was really beautiful and special, I thought.
Yeah.
And also Alicia Vikander is in this, and she's probably the second biggest part, right? Second biggest role. And there's a small scene where she is telling him that she doesn't say I love you, but she says she wishes she could be his lady, right? And she has this kind of speech, and I thought it was really touching and beautiful, and it put tears in my eyes.
Yes.
And at the end, see, that's a big part of what he does wrong, is not marrying her and honoring her in their relationship.
He takes their baby.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, that scene is pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, that's horrible. But I thought her part there was really nice. I don't always love that actress, but I liked her a lot in this.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I really did love this other scene that had Alicia Vikander. So she essentially plays this prostitute throughout the movie, but then she also plays the lady, the woman that's living in the castle, right? Two different characters. And the lady has this speech about the color green and its significance. And she talks about rot, right? And in a typical movie, she would maybe have like two sort of clever lines and they would cut to the next scene. But her speech is drawn out, and it's like there's little pauses in between what she's saying, and there's the reactions from, Gowan and the Lord, right? That was I thought that was sort of a ballsy scene to have, and then I also just loved her delivery of it and the directing in that scene.
Yes,
the choices.
At first, when she started talking, I was feeling kind of like this movie meanders a lot, and so I did get a little bored sometimes.
Yeah, I'll admit I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, you were yawning.
Okay.
Yeah, when she started that speech, I was kind of like, oh, great, here we go. But then I got sucked into it, and I was really into her delivery. So she does, I think we both agree, she does a really nice acting job. Like, You like that scene, I like this other scene. But, yeah, she was good in this. She brought a lot to the table. And I just want to say something about the director and the themes here.
Sure.
That I feel like he brought that weren't necessarily in the poem. In the poem, they don't have this scene where Gowan flinches from the knight and has this whole like other life, sliding door basically, where he does the wrong thing and what happens. That's not in the poem. So this director added all that.
Right.
And I'm kind of interested in why he did that. I think he must be interested in the passage of time, right? Even with the speech about rot, like everything dies, and I'm not sure what's going on there, but it makes me kind of curious about his other movies.
Yes. Well, we're still unpacking some shit. We were going to wrap it up, but you know what? To address what you just said, there is this also other great scene with Joel Edgerton as the Lord and Gawain, right? Where he asks Gawain, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And Gawain says, I'm going to go face the Green Knight, and then I will have honor, and I will be a knight. And Joel Edgerton kind of asks him these different questions, and he says basically, oh, you're going to be a different person once you do this? Or like, this is all you need? And he's kind of poking at like, why aren't you this person right now? You could have honor right now. You have to go face this guy to have honor. And
also, and what comes after, right? He's like, what else? Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that sequence that you just mentioned, that dream sequence that you feel like David Lowery added to the poem, it shows the rot, right? It shows the rot. It shows you did this without being noble, and so you are rotting on the inside. And so he saw the rot in his dream, and he like she says in her speech about rot, you cut the rot out, right? And if you don't cut the rot out, you have to cut off a piece of yourself, right? You have to bleed it out. And so he bleeds it out. In the poem, the Green Knight goes to decapitate Gawain, but he only just gives him a wound.
A nick.
Yeah, and so maybe that's what ends up happening. They don't show that at the very last scene in the movie. The Green Knight, like he had, Gawain has his vision, and then he says, "I'm ready," and he takes off the sash that's supposed to protect him. So he's like, "Okay, now I'm ready. Now you can go to decapitate."
Right, and by taking off the protective sash means he's really giving it like.
He's truly being brave.
Right, he's truly being brave and like sticking his neck out literally to have his head cut off because the sash was going to protect him. I did really like that.
Right, and so then the Green Knight goes, okay, well now off with your head. That's the very last scene.
It's like a little joke though. Right. I don't think he's actually going to kill him because he stops and he says, you know what, you've showed how brave you are.
Right. And so you would think that if he follows the poem, he probably would just give him like a little nick on the back, and then he would go back to the castle.
Right.
Show his bravery.
Right. Yeah, no, and like it's pretty philosophical. I mean, actually, even just talking about this, I'm going to think about it more. I mean, it makes me want to think about the kind of person I want to be and what honor means, and kindnesses that you can do for people when they need it. I don't know. It's pretty deep.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Maybe we should all examine our lives and what we want to be and what it means to be worthy.
Yeah, I think that honor is always an important thing, and that's what a knight is supposed to be all about, honor, and I don't think that our culture nowadays really cares about honor at all.
Yeah, and I'm guilty. I'm saying right now, I never even think about having honor, really, but it's something we should practice more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's our review. Sherry wanted us to go 25 minutes. Here we are at 33. But thank you so much for watching. We love talking about movies on this channel, and we love reviewing TV shows. And we hope you can join us for our next live review. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.